He's a good boy. That's a good boy, Brendan. Yes, it's a good boy. You need a treat? All right, hold on. Oh, there it is. There it is. Go get it. Hello, space fans. My name's Brian. Welcome to Space Command. Today we're going to be bringing you some space news from around the world that we've gathered together in one convenient place. Before we get started, though, let's talk about some space weather. On January 29th, there'll be a conjunction of the Moon and Mars. The waning crescent moon will pass just north of Mars. You can see the pair in the dawn sky in the constellation Sagittarius. There'll be a new moon arriving on February 1st. And then weather on Mars. Let's see, today's date on Mars is 3369. Sol 3369. The high temperature is 21 degrees Fahrenheit. The low temperature tonight will be negative 94 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a sunny day on Mars, and the UV radiation index is moderate. The sunrise was at 5:26 a.m. this morning. The sunset will be at 5:21 this afternoon, and the wind is 7 miles per hour out of the southwest. The barometric pressure is 705. 705. All right. Well, let's talk about some space news. Let's see here. Let me get a drink. Yes, we have some merch. So we've got shirts and mugs. So check out the merch on www.space-command.org. All right. Well, let's talk about some space news. SpaceX's Cargo Dragon space capsule has returned to Earth with a splashdown off the coast of Florida, returning over 5,000 pounds of science experiments and station hardware from the ISS and the Expedition 66 crew. NASA, the European Space Agency, and the Canadian Space Agency's James Webb Space Telescope has reached its final parking orbit well beyond the moon's distance from Earth at 1,000,000 miles. And that's at a Lagrange point, that's where a somewhat neutral gravity point exists between the Earth and the Sun constellation. It'll be another 5 months, though, before any images start being returned from the James Webb Space Telescope, so that's a bummer. It was launched December 25th last year on an Ariane 5 rocket. It cost $10 billion to develop and launch. The mission's expected to last 20 years, and it is planned to last at least 10 years. This space telescope is 100 times as powerful as the Hubble Space Telescope, so that's pretty impressive. And the telescope itself is 15 years behind schedule and 10 times over budget, which is usual cost of business with NASA with their cost plus contracts that they do, which is crazy.
If you join the Army, you'll get an education unlike any other. Every single day, people will try and kill you. That'll teach you lessons you'll never learn in school. Improvised explosive devices, snipers, suicide bombers. That's why there's never been a better time to enlist. In the Navy. Oh, yeah. Now them poor grunts are eating sand in 130-degree heat. We're catching cool breezes and getting some. That's right. Navy's co-ed, baby. Our lady sailors bathe every day. In co-ed showers. I ain't lying. Hell, out here with the big guns, we can practically guarantee you won't die. Unless you party too hard. Call your Navy recruiter today. We'll pay for college, and it won't cost you an arm and a leg. Navy. Because joining the Army is just stupid.
All right, the European Space Agency plans on launching an imaging satellite in 2028, which is going to analyze the atmospheres of 1,000 previously detected exoplanets. The mission is still in its design phase. On the International Space Station, the first French astronaut to command the space station has officially taken command. Thomas Pesquet is an ESA astronaut, European Space Agency astronaut, and member of the Expedition 67 crew. All right, let's talk about the Artemis program. What's going on with the Artemis program? They have successfully completed some critical tests the past few days. This is the ground launch software test and the ground launch sequencer test. And that is with the SLS rocket and the Orion space capsule integrated. So this is a countdown rehearsal, basically. A countdown rehearsal, and they did 2 of them. So they successfully completed 2 countdown rehearsals with the software and the equipment all integrated together, the SLS rocket and the Orion space capsule. So that is terrific news, and it shows that NASA is inching closer, ever closer, to being able to launch the Artemis 1 mission. To remind you, the Artemis 1 mission is going to launch the Orion space capsule into space, into orbit, and it's going to go around the moon and back. And that's going to happen this year. They said, they promised. It's going to happen this year. Are you buying that? It's going to happen this year. We should will it to happen this year. So, anyway, Artemis 2 now is going to send a crewed mission around the moon and back in 2024. Then the Artemis 3 mission is going to land astronauts on the moon's surface in 2025. So it's awesome. It's happening. I'm not a big fan of the Artemis program, mostly because none of it is, well, the SLS rocket is not reusable. So guess who the manufacturer of the SLS rocket is? That's right, it's Boeing. None of that rocket is reusable. So it is what it is. All right. The Space Force launched 2 surveillance satellites on January 21st at 1 p.m. from Florida's Cape Canaveral Space Force Station on a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket. SpaceX, what's going on with SpaceX? They are ramping up the Raptor 2.0 rocket engine testing at McGregor, Texas. And if, as you know, the Raptor 2.0 goes on the Starship, and that is moving right along. Then they're starting construction of a new starbase, call it Starbase 2. It's under construction at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And so there'll be 2 space star bases. There'll be 2 SpaceX star bases, one in Boca Chica, Texas, and one in Florida. So also remember, they are also developing those oil platforms, 2 of them. Deimos and Phobos, I think, are the names of those, which are the names of Mars's moons. Those oil rig platforms that go out into the Gulf or out into the Atlantic will be able to serve as a launch and landing platform for the Starship. So moving right along. SpaceX also just came in today. SpaceX won a $102 million contract from the Air Force to be able to launch and immediately, rapidly transport equipment anywhere in the world on the Starship. So it might not be just equipment, it's military. So imagine that they could launch and land maybe personnel, soldiers, Marines, Army personnel at a moment's notice anywhere in the world. Can you imagine that? Also landing tanks and armored personnel carriers. Hey, This is getting interesting, right? So that's a $102 million contract. Also included with that contract is a humanitarian aid. So let's say some kind of natural disaster occurs, like a hurricane or an earthquake or something. They could rapidly deploy humanitarian supplies anywhere in the world very quickly with the Starship. So that's amazing. A SpaceX Falcon 9 launch from back in 2015, which deployed NASA's Deep Space Climate Observatory successfully. Unfortunately, the upper stage of that rocket did not have enough fuel to return. So basically, it's been wandering in space ever since. And then after 7 years, experts are predicting that this Falcon 9 upper stage engine, rocket engine, weighing 4 metric tons, is expected to crash into the moon this year on March 4th. So stay tuned for coverage of that. That might be pretty spectacular if it crashes into the moon.
And the pursuit of all who threaten it. Navy, accelerate your life. Call 1-800-USA-Navy.
I'm going to set the record straight now on Boeing's Starliner crew capsule and what's going on with that. There's been some false reporting out there that NASA is basically cutting ties with Boeing regarding this Starliner crew capsule. If you remember, back in 2010, for two companies to be able to provide transportation services from launch to the International Space Station for the NASA astronauts and back. And Boeing Starliner was one of those that won the contract. And they've been having some problems, definitely having some problems, way behind schedule. But NASA is not giving up on Boeing Starliner, not just yet. Yeah, they may have reassigned some of the astronauts who were assigned to the Starliner over to SpaceX's Crew Dragon, but that's just logistics right there. We've got to move on. Meanwhile, Boeing is still working on the problem and expected to solve it. Boeing Starliner crew capsule team, they're busy replacing the service module for the second demonstration mission, OFT-2, for Boeing Starliner crew capsule. It's still planned for a possible launch in May. So, faulty valves on the service module were identified in the failure of the Starliner crew capsule OFT-1, which failed to reach its target test mission to the International Space Station, and that was 2 years ago. So that was 2 years ago. Yeah. I'm going to give you a little background on that. I mean, we might as well. We're discussing it. I'm trying to clear up some of these rumors. All right. So, yeah, 12 years ago, NASA put out a contract or put out for bids for some companies to be able to develop their own spacecraft and transport NASA astronauts back and forth between the International Space Station, right? So Boeing was awarded a $4.2 billion contract to develop the Starliner, which is what we're talking about here. SpaceX was the other U.S. company that was awarded a contract to develop the Crew Dragon a space capsule. And despite SpaceX only being awarded $2.6 billion, remember I said Boeing got $4.2 billion to do the exact same thing. So SpaceX was given $2.6 billion to develop the Crew Dragon. And SpaceX actually successfully launched the Crew Dragon nearly 2 years ago, and they've been transporting NASA astronauts ever since, back and forth between the International Space Station. It's going great. So that's what the deal is with that. Boeing, though, is still working out the problems on their Starliner crew capsule. The whole point of this, having two companies, was so that there would be a backup. If there was any kind of a mishap or disaster with the SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule, Boeing Starliner would be able to step in and still be able to provide transportation services. So it's a backup, it's redundancy. You need to have that. It's important. You know, there was a third company in the bidding for the transportation services of the NASA crew, and that was the Dream Chaser. That's right, the space plane, Sierra Nevada's Dream Chaser space plane, and it actually was being developed. They had a actual hardware. They had a mock-up of the Dream Chaser, and it was going well. All right, we're talking about Sierra Nevada Corporation and the Dream Chaser space plane, which was developed originally to carry astronauts for NASA to the International Space Station and back. Unfortunately, they didn't make the cut in the competition. SpaceX and Boeing are the two chosen companies that are going to be taking passengers and are taking passengers back and forth, astronauts back and forth between the International Space Station and Earth. But Sierra Nevada didn't give up. They competed for the contract for the cargo missions to take cargo to the International Space Station and back. So they're unmanned, and they did win that. And so they got 6 contracted cargo missions for NASA. So that's pretty awesome. And unfortunately, their first flight was supposed to be in late 2021, but that's been delayed now to 2022 due to the pandemic. Um, the two companies that are currently taking cargo to the International Space Station are SpaceX with the Dragon Cargo 2 capsule and Northrop Grumman's Cygnus capsule. Of course, like I said, Sierra Nevada was supposed to be sending up their first flight late this year, and now that's been pushed back to an undetermined date in 2022. The first plane is named Tenacity, and it's currently moving to the final stages of production. The second vehicle is also in production, and Sierra Nevada Corporation is looking for customers outside of NASA for possible contracts to launch to orbit and then return back. Sierra Nevada Corporation has not given up on their dream of carrying passengers or astronauts to the International Space Station or to orbit and back. So they're working on that diligently. I believe they're going to make it. It's just a matter of time. So that's Sierra Nevada Corporation. But instead of choosing Dream Chaser, Boeing was chosen. And I think the reason is obvious. Boeing has been a tried and true partner in space ever since going all the way back to the Apollo program and before, the Space Shuttle program, the International Space Station. You name it, Boeing has been there when it comes to space. But for some reason, things are just not going well with this Starliner. And we're hoping that the glitches get worked out, that these valves get fixed, and that Starliner is able to fly soon. Now, Sierra Nevada's Dream Chaser space plane is not dead in the water. I really like that vehicle, and it has the capability that NASA needs. Because look, Dream Chaser can land on any conventional runway, and when you're talking about stuff coming back from the International Space Station, we're talking about time-sensitive science experiments that are up there, and they're coming back. Just like the SpaceX Cargo Dragon that just landed the other day. It had, what did I say it had? Like 5,000 pounds of science experiments and station hardware that it brought back with it. And now that stuff is time critical. It lands in the Atlantic Ocean, in the ocean off the coast of Florida, and that stuff has got to be offloaded and rapidly transported to NASA's labs so that they can process that stuff. Now that takes time when you're landing in the ocean. Now with the Dream Chaser space plane, they can land on any conventional runway, so they can land right there at Kennedy in Florida and offload that stuff to NASA right away. Dream Chaser has that capability. Now, for ESA, the European Space Agency, uh, the Canadian Space Agency, any of those space agencies that might need something like that with critical scientific experiments, or maybe even astronauts, Dream Chaser could pull through and provide that service for them. I really see in the future here that NASA is going to need another contract, bid contract out for another round on this transportation services for NASA astronauts. And I expect that Dream Chaser will be chosen to provide manned service to and from the International Space Station. You watch, it's going to happen. It should have happened in the beginning, from the get go, but it didn't. Like I said, Boeing got the contract because they are the tried and true partner there as far as space goes, and they have been forever. All right.
And to think, somewhere, some poor guy is buying a minivan. Navy, accelerate your life. Log on to the Life Accelerator at Navy.com.
United Launch Alliance has announced that on its maiden launch of its new Vulcan rocket, which is supposed to happen this year, and the primary mission of that rocket is deploying a lunar lander to the moon for a company called Astrobotic. The lunar lander is called the Peregrine. Now, the secondary payload of this mission is a Star Trek memorial mission for Celestis. Celestis is a space memorial service company, and its payload consists of 150 flight capsules containing cremated remains, DNA samples, and messages from Star Trek fans. So the cremated remains include those of Gene Roddenberry's wife. Gene Roddenberry's cremated remains were launched to space back in 1997. The ULA's debut of the Vulcan rocket has been named the Enterprise. NASA has identified a massive asteroid named 16 Psyche. The asteroid is heavily laden with precious metals, worth more than the entire global economy. The golden asteroid has an estimated worth of $10,000 quadrillion. NASA is planning to send an asteroid probe to study the asteroid in August of this year. This asteroid is 140 miles wide and is shaped like a potato. NASA's Discovery mission should arrive at the asteroid in 2026. A SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket has been selected to launch the Discovery mission. Now, I don't know about you, but between me and you, I sincerely hope that any mission to this asteroid, 16 Psyche, is a failure as far as collecting any of that gold and procuring it and bringing it back here to Earth. The reason being, $10,000 quadrillion worth of gold would basically make the value of gold here on Earth zero. It'll be worthless. If you flood the market with that much gold, gold would be as common as dirt. So I hope that doesn't work out too well. Sorry, NASA. I hope you have good luck studying it and getting some good pictures of it, but I hope you're not planning on harvesting any of that gold off of that asteroid and then bringing it back, because then all of our gold will be basically worthless. It's true. Think about it. All right. Well, that pretty much covers the space news for this week. We've got some launches, upcoming launches. Today, January 28th, SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket is launching its satellite called the Cosmos SkyMed Radar Surveillance Satellite for the Italian Space Agency from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida at 5 o'clock. January 29th, SpaceX Falcon 9 will launch the Starlink next batch of Starlink satellites from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida at 2 p.m. Well, that's going to cover it. That's all we have for today. Listen, I sure do want to thank you for joining us. Listen, if you like this content, make sure you click the like button and make sure you click the bell and the subscribe button so you'll be notified of future broadcasts so you can tune in for those. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.